Thanks.
Hello, welcome. Glad you guys joined us tonight. Our speaker tonight is Rabbi Joshua B. Lief. Rabbi Joshua is the rabbi of historic Temple Shalom in Wheeling, the very same congregation where he grew up. So the office that he sits in is also the office where he got sent when he was bad in Sunday school. As a youngster, he was active in all sports, music, and he was an Eagle Scout. He attended Princeton University, where he swam on the varsity squad, competed on the debate team, and graduated with a degree in history. After Princeton, Rabbi Lief attended the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion. That's a mouthful. After living in Jerusalem for the first year of the seminary, he completed his studies at HUC-JIR's campus in Cincinnati, Ohio, where he was ordained as a rabbi in May of 2003. Just out of seminary, Rabbi Lief served as the rabbi of Mitzvah congregation in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and for 5 years he helped grow that congregation and reached out to the larger community. He was called to be the senior rabbi of congregation, and I'm probably going to mispronounce this, Rabbi Joshua, is it Ahavath Chised?
We just called it the Temple.
The Temple, okay. A large congregation in Jacksonville, Florida, where he served from 2008 until 2016. In Jacksonville, he also served on the boards of several major community nonprofit organizations and worked diligently at the local, state, and national levels to ensure equal rights for all citizens. Rabbi Lief is inspired to serve as the rabbi of Temple Shalom, enabling him to give back to the congregation and to the city. Having moved away for college, Rabbi Lief is proud to have returned so the next generation of the Lief family can grow up in this special place. Since returning to Wheeling, Rabbi Lief has been active in the city's current revitalization efforts through support of the arts, business development, our parks, public education, and interfaith engagement. He serves as chairperson of the Human Rights Commission for the City of Wheeling and is honored to serve on the boards of Wheeling Health Right, Congregations for Caring, the Impact Coalition, the Unity Center, Easter Seals, and is the past president of the Wheeling Rotary Club. Rabbi Lief is honored to serve as a member of the Central Conference of American Rabbis Responsa Committee, helping to bring Jewish law to bear on the challenges of our modern lives. He is also a Rotary Paul Harris Fellow and a life member of the National Eagle Scout Association. Rabbi Lief is married to his beautiful wife, Rebecca, and they are delighted daily by their adorable daughters, Leah and Ellie, and are proud to make Wheeling their home. So I would like to welcome Rabbi Lief to Trinity Episcopal Church and our Lenten lecture series. Thank you, Rabbi Lief.
Thank you for having me. There once was a man who was very poor, and he walked into a sanctuary, sat in the back row, and prayed a little prayer. Looking up to the heavens, he said, "Lord, please let me win the lottery so that I can feed my wife and 11 children." And nothing happened. So he came back the next day, prayed the same prayer, the day after that, and the next day, and the next, for weeks and weeks, months and months, for a year, each day, praying the same prayer. "Lord, please let me win the lottery so that I can feed my wife and 11 children." And one day, a voice boomed out from the heavens and said, "Harry, meet me halfway. Buy a ticket." From a Jewish point of view, buy a ticket is really our approach to living. Judaism judges us not so much on our faith, though there are faith elements, of course, but more so on our actions. how we choose to behave. The idea that we are in a covenantal connection with the divine, that God gives us skills and talent and wisdom and abilities, and also directions for living, to know the difference between right and wrong, and then invites us to put those skills to use however we see fit. We can choose to do what we know we should, or we can choose to do something that we know we shouldn't. And the reality is that thanks to our free will, we will probably have some measure of success whichever direction we choose. So when Father Tommy offered me the subject for this evening, that it was to be a look at theodicy, the question of evil in the world, it presupposes, with all due respect, a very Christological point of view. The letter that I received said, given the points that God is all good, then why is there evil? And I'm not sure I'm willing to give on that point. I think that God is the infinite potential that fuels our finite actuality, but God is not reserved from a Jewish point of view to only the things that we like. Monty Python, certainly not Jews, all good Anglicans, each and every one of them, famously had a parody song years ago on the tune of all things bright and beautiful, the Lord God made them all. There was all things foul and gangrenous, poisonous and venomous and so on. The Lord God made them all also. And that is definitely a very Jewish view. God, as the creator, doesn't always manage, or micromanage in this case, the creation. So one of the best Jewish observations on the question of theodicy, certainly we do wonder why there is evil in the world, though I'm not willing to grant the point that God exclusively does good. God is the empowerer, and there is evil in the world. Why wouldn't a God who is certainly capable intervene to stop bad things from happening? At minimum, to stop bad things from happening to good people, quote unquote, and in practical terms, to stop bad things from happening to me, because that's all I care about at the end of the day. I don't mind if bad things happen to you. Why do they always happen to me? That's the question in most of our hearts. I wish no bad things happen, sure, but really on a personal level, where's mine? Where's mine? I'm a good person. I do what's right. I follow the rules. I try to behave. Why doesn't everything go my way? Why don't bad things just seem not to happen to me, or to those whom I love, or to those about whom I care, or to my preferred political party candidates, or to my favorite country in the world, and fill in the, or to the school for which I'm rooting in a basketball tournament that dropped their opening round game today. The reality is that interventionist question is awfully presumptuous from a Jewish point of view. If you get up in the morning and pray to God, please let me win the lottery today, you're missing the point already. I'll ask a few questions, answer honestly. How many of us are currently alive? That's a miracle. Are there people who were alive yesterday, went to sleep, and did not wake up today? Of course. Across our nation, probably thousands and thousands. Right here in our local community, probably at least a few. If you can currently see and hear me, raise your hand. Are there people who are blind and deaf? And yet, you aren't. That's a miracle. From a Jewish point of view, we look at the direction of prayer as reversed. It isn't that we should be asking God for things. It's that we should be thanking God for the countless things we've already received. In our daily liturgy, the opening prayers in the morning, there's a series called Nisim B'chol Yom in Hebrew, which is a lovely turn of phrase. It means the miracles that happen every day that we otherwise might have taken for granted. Opening our eyes, being able to breathe again, being able to get out of bed, being able to move around, being able to get dressed, being able to go to the bathroom, being able to go about our day. There's a series of blessings that every person should say upon waking in the morning. What would keep you from doing such a ritual? I'm busy. I got things to do. I don't have time to pause and say thank you for those blessings. There's a laundry list of them. There's like a dozen and a half in the Nisim B'chol Yom prayer. Who's got time for praying each morning? I've got things to do. But how many of us have ever sat in a hospital waiting room, helpless, while our loved one was lying in a bed of pain? Oh, then we've got plenty of time, right? All of a sudden we have plenty of time to ask God to heal the person whom we love. But we didn't have any time to give thanks when they weren't sick at all, when they were doing great, and so were we. We were too busy then. Moses Maimonides, who lived in the 11th century in Spain, was a wonderful commentator on Jewish law and also a physician. Eventually he moved from Spain to North Africa and later served as the physician to the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. So a man of science as well as religion. And he made the following suggestion in a text called the Moreh Nevuchim, the Guide for the Perplexed, a philosophical treatise that he wrote. He said, there are two kinds of evil in the world, and one of them doesn't exist. So what are the two kinds of evil? Natural evil and human evil. So natural evil is my home got washed away in a flood. Really? Do you think God was striking you down for your evil behavior? Or did you build in a floodplain? When we saw the terrible devastation 20 years ago in New Orleans with Hurricane Katrina, that's a city built below sea level in a notorious coast that has hurricanes every year from May to November, and the levees were not properly maintained. So was that, as some political commentators said, God's wrath upon the decadence and sinfulness of New Orleanians? Or was that the levee broke and the city flooded and it wasn't well organized to repair the damage and move people out of the way, and so the devastation was even worse after the storm than during the storm? Whose fault was that? Where can I put the blame? I want to point the finger at somebody else and make it their fault so that I don't have to bear any responsibility when bad things occur to me or to those whom I love. So I call it natural evil. God making terrible things happen to the world. Maimonides said that's the fake one. And even 1,000 years ago, as a physician, a man of science and introspection, Maimonides said, here's the proof. The more we learn about the world around us, the less we will see the experience of natural evil in the world. I lived in Florida on the Atlantic coast, as Father Tommy said, for almost a decade in Jacksonville. We had hurricanes and tropical storms every year. In the entire time that I lived there, we had one direct hit and two that passed over us. How many buildings were destroyed by the hurricanes in those three major storms? None. Because the building codes in Florida are that the building has to be able to withstand 140-mile-an-hour winds, or it's illegal to build that building. Because the more we understand about the world around us, the better we can respond to it. Let's take an example that hits even more close to home, considering the current events of our world today. How many of us are old enough to remember someone who had polio? I had relatives who had polio as children. How many people know somebody who's gotten polio recently? None of us. Why? Because Jonas Salk came up with a vaccine that worked. But what's happening right now in Texas? There's a horrible outbreak of measles, a disease that was eradicated in our country less than a decade ago. We said there'd never be another measles case, and now there is. Why? Because we chose to ignore that which we had learned. Maimonides wasn't saying that humanity is greater than God. Maimonides was saying that God gave us the ability, minds, to think and comprehend and understand our world better. And when we did, if we did, we would see less that could be blamed on natural evil, but plenty that can be blamed on the other kind of evil, which is human evil. So human evil is very real because people make choices and God allows for our free will. There are examples, particularly in the Exodus narrative in the Torah, the story of Moses back and forth with the Pharaoh over letting the people go. And late in the game, there are several occasions when God hardens Pharaoh's heart and takes away the free will to show off and do extra plagues and make an example out of the Egyptians. And those are very uncomfortable stories. All of the commentators in Jewish history, we see that the sacred text as an ongoing conversation. There's the text, and then there's commentaries on the text, and commentaries on the commentaries, and so on and so forth, all the way to the present day. And everyone uniformly is deeply troubled. For thousands of years now, this conversation has been happening. Deeply troubled by the fact that Pharaoh, the bad guy in the story, might have gotten punished a little bit for stuff that he didn't even want to do. And the general consensus is he wanted to do bad stuff before God was hardening his heart, so it's reasonable to see him get punished in the end. That's fine. But the story strikes me, at least as a reader, as unvarnished and therefore more valuable. If the Bible were neatly edited, somebody would have erased that part, right? But the fact that that story is preserved is a wonderful truth-telling and a wonderful reminder that sometimes there is injustice in the world inflicted upon us, even inflicted upon those who are putting injustices upon others. So that story is one of the rarest of rare occasions because most of the time, at least in our sacred scriptures, God chooses not to intervene. The most potent example of theodicy within the last 100 years, certainly, is the Holocaust, which disproportionately affected our Jewish community. The Nazis set about on an organized campaign of murdering everyone whom they deemed to be Untermenschen, less than human, the disabled, the elderly, those who were different in varying ways. And the Jewish community disproportionately. Of the 12+ million people murdered by the Nazis, 6 million of those were Jews, and 6 million others who were previously your fellow German citizen who lived next door were suddenly rounded up, taken away, and systematically murdered by society as an official decree of the government, while countless other German citizens, friends, neighbors, business associates, colleagues, stood by and watched. And in the aftermath of the Holocaust, a popular question, particularly amongst those who survived, the Jewish community in the late 40s and early 50s had a real crisis of conscience. Where was God? Why didn't God intervene? And it's the wrong question. God was present in the Holocaust. We know because we've heard stories of survivors. And we've heard countless stories of those who fought back. Countless stories of those non-Jews, the neighbors and the friends who tried to hide Jews. Right? I think God was present. Who was absent was us. Who was absent was the rest of the world. And there was a profound absence. If we think about it, the World War itself ran from the end of 1939 till the middle of 1945. right? But Hitler came to power in 33, and the Nuremberg laws were already started in 35. So Jews were being disenfranchised from their businesses and from their jobs and positions and such, and the property was being confiscated, and people were being rounded up and displaced into camps. The mass murders started shortly thereafter. But in the years of 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, and 40, and almost all of 41, for 9 years, what did the rest of the world do? Here in the United States, we actually turned away boats of refugees in the 30s. People who were told by the Germans, leave now, we'll let you, got on boats and left. Some of them came to the United States and were told, sorry, we're full. And those people were often sent back to Germany and later died in concentration camps, because we, as a country, were officially not open to strangers. Despite the words at the base of the Statue of Liberty written by Emma Lazarus, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, not at the moment, we're full up, was the answer given by the United States. And when the war broke out in earnest, there was a deep sentiment in this country, a significant movement to stay out of it entirely. That's a European problem, not our business to meddle. And what happened? Well, we all know what happened. The Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor in December of 41. The United States jumped in the war. And then what changed? So 42, 43, 44, and half of 45. In 3.5 years, at tremendous cost, Nazism was defeated. And the Holocaust, of course, was stopped, along with the Reich's regime. So evil was defeatable, but only if good people were willing to try. So the question of theodicy, from a Jewish point of view, is not why does God allow evil to endure, but rather why do we? Because if we have skills and talent and wisdom and ability given by God, and directions for living that tell us the difference between right and wrong, then the only excuse for evil behavior to exist at all is because good people are standing by and allowing it to do so. When good people stand back and do nothing, evil certainly can succeed. When good people try to make a difference, they are clearly able to do so. Think about the following. How many of us have ever done something hurtful to another person, even by accident? An unkind word, an unkind action. We hurt somebody's feelings. We found out about it immediately or much later down the road, but we did something that hurt somebody else by our choices. Are we evil people? Are we horrible, terrible folks? Or was that an accident or an oversight or in the heat of the moment, or I said something I later regret, right? When we hurt other people, we often feel bad about our behavior. By the way, if you're reflecting now and you're thinking, I didn't feel bad, you are a sociopath. Congratulations. It's a quick and easy diagnosis. If you don't feel bad about hurting other people, you have your very own category. If you enjoy causing pain to others, that's psychopathy, so you're a different category. But the point is, why do we feel bad? Why? Why do we feel bad that somebody else is hurt? I mean, it's not us that's hurt, it's them that's hurt. And the answer is, because now on the margin, on the slimmest of margins, we have created a world that is less nice than it used to be. There's now one more hurt person and one more hurtful person, and we are forced to live in a world that's not as good as it was a moment ago. Take the opposite. You see a hungry person, and you've got a tuna fish sandwich, and you give them half your sandwich. Did you solve world hunger? No. Did you solve the underlying reasons of why they are hungry in the first place? Oh my goodness, no. But in the moment, if somebody took a snapshot of the world at that moment, there's one less hungry person because they're a little less hungry while they're eating your sandwich. And there's one more helpful person, you. And now you have created a slightly nicer world, and you get to live in that world. So usually we feel good when we do things that are good, and we feel bad when we do things that are bad. But often we worry about what other people will think about our actions. We worry about the consequences of speaking truth to power, of standing up to those who are mean and cruel. And we think, I don't know if I want to get involved. And that's a reasonable concern. Will I really be able to make a difference? That's a reasonable concern. It's not every moment and every situation that each of us could fix all the problems of the world. But at any moment, any of us could in some small way fix at least a part of a given problem of the world. And our reasonable paralysis from action in the grand scheme of things becomes not only less reasonable, but completely unreasonable if we choose not to act at all. Can we solve everything that's wrong with the world, even if we really, really try? No. But you can do something. You can do something. I'm willing to bet that right now you're thinking of a something. And I haven't even asked you to, but you're thinking of a something right now, and I could do a little more. I could be a little kinder to that person. I could forgive them for the thing they did to me. I could repair that relationship. I could reach out and offer to help more. I could donate more to my church. That was a plug for you. The point is, there are things that we could do, and we don't usually choose to do so because we're worried it won't make that big of a difference. Or we're worried what will other people think about us. Or we're worried about the consequences that will come our way. And that is all that is needed for evil to succeed. Us sitting back and choosing not to act. The problem of theodicy is not an absence of God in the world. The problem of theodicy is an absence of us rising to meet the challenges that are before us with the gifts that God has already given us, and to show our appreciation for those gifts, not with empty words of blessing upon waking up in the morning, but with meaningful actions to put those blessings to better use throughout the day. And that's my position on the subject from a Jewish point of view, and I'm more than happy to take any questions from the crowd. So fire away, and I'll do my best to answer on this or any other subject. Stunned silence. Thoughts, questions, reflections? Anyone? Oh, come on, you must have something. Please, thank you. I think, yes. I think the idea of God being all-powerful from a Jewish point of view is connected to a more significant Jewish idea on the subject of theology as a larger idea, and that is God is beyond our comprehension. So to put any sort of limit, to put God in a box, is not a very Jewish concept of God. There's lots of folks who define themselves as atheists. And they say, I don't believe in some old man with a white beard sitting on a cloud chucking lightning bolts at the world. And I say, I don't believe in that either. Right? That would be too limited. That would be, that's Zeus. That's not, that's a depiction from Greco-Roman mythology. That's not the God I believe in either. Now, Christianity, as a faith, presents a view of God as immanently relatable, whereas Judaism likes to focus on God as transcendent and beyond our comprehension. Now, the idea of God's immanence is present in Judaism. The easy way to tell is, if Christianity has a belief, you can assume there's a basis for it in Judaism. because you borrowed and stole everything. So there certainly are Jewish concepts of imminence. I think of the story in Kings of Elijah's running from King Ahab, and he hides in a cave, and he's worn out and exhausted. He can't do it anymore. He's the last one left who still believes in God. And there's the big fire, and there's the earthquake, and there's the storm winds, and God's not any of those things. God's the still small voice that he hears in his own conscience. So imminence is available, but it's still a connection, and I would say a connection. I mean that in a sense of covenant. Each of us individually is in a relationship with the divine, and all of us as Jews collectively are in a covenant with the divine. From a Jewish point of view, that is our perspective. But we usually think of God in the transcendent terms. It is not a secret, I know, a sticking point for us with our Christian friends. The idea of God appearing in human form is too limited for us, right? That's too limited. Now, Christianity makes tremendous efforts. The name of your building is the clue, right? Trinitarian Christianity, the idea that God is each of the three, but also all of the three. You can jump through all of the hoops you wish. The benefit of Christianity as a religion is that it is not inherently rational, right? And I mean that in a technical sense, not in a criticism. It's a technical sense. To say everything has to make sense isn't the point of Christianity. The more you believe in it, despite the fact that you can't prove it, that's your faith, right? The leap of faith that you make. Judaism doesn't ask us to make a leap of faith. The things that we are asked to believe are all plausible things because we see the efficacy of them demonstrated, right? Why should you help the needy? They'll be a little less needy. Right? Why shouldn't you murder people? Well, somebody might murder you. Right? The mitzvot, the commandments that we are tasked with performing, are all reasonable things from a Jewish point of view. And so to have a God that can be put in a box is too small. That's inherently a wrong picture, right? So when the Israelites are wandering through the wilderness, they build the tabernacle, right? A place to go and worship, and the pillar of cloud above it by day and the pillar of fire by night. Does that mean God is only there at that spot in the desert and God is missing from the rest of the world at any given moment? No. God doesn't need the house to live in. We need the place to focus on. That's for us. In the story in Exodus 25 where it says, if you build me this tabernacle, I will dwell amongst you. That doesn't mean only there at the tabernacle. That means you'll have a place to think of and connect with me. When our loved ones die, there's a cemetery right over here, yes? Are our loved ones in the cemetery? Well, their remains may be buried there, but are they there? No, we carry their memory with us in our hearts all the time, right? They're never gone from our lives. We remember them, we think of them throughout our lives. And we pick a place conveniently to say, I'll go there and there's a stone, but that's not them. They're wherever I am because I remember my grandparents and I remember my loved one who's passed away. I take them with me anywhere. I think God, on a meta sense, even more so. Wherever we are is a reasonable place with which to connect to God, in which to connect with God. And wherever we are, as an extension of that, is a place where God's will could be done through our actions, right? So if you're in a place that appears to be godless in the behavior of others, and you're there, it could be a better place if you would try. There's a discussion, a very famous rabbinic story that town full of evil-doing people tries to hire a rabbi to come and be their rabbi, and he declines. And the answer is, as the only good person, it's much more likely that I'll get swayed into joining you being bad than that you'll be swayed into joining me doing good. And Jewishly speaking, we definitely believe in community. You can't really be a Jew all by yourself. There are elements of our worship. Can you pray on your own? Sure. I said a blessing quietly to myself before eating the food tonight. But can you worship by yourself? And the answer for Jews is no. You need a community, at least 10, we say, a minyan, to have a service, because you can't really do it on your own. And so if you find yourself to be the only good person in a place filled with bad people, you might want to ask for backup. That's reasonable, right? That's reasonable. The old joke is, the guy appears in heaven before the angel, very Christological setup, by the way, and the angel says, I don't see anything in the book here that says whether you were good or bad. You lived kind of a boring life. And the guy says, well, there was that one time I defended that young lady who was going to get attacked by that biker mob. And the angel said, I don't even see that. What happened? He said, oh, yeah, I stepped in. They were going to harass this young girl, and I stood right in front of them and said, to get to her, you got to go through me. And the angel said, that's incredibly brave. When did that happen? The guy said, about 30 seconds ago. And so, if you're the only good person in a bad setting, it might not go so well. But the opportunity exists for most of us on any given moment to make that moment a moment for doing more good. Other thoughts or questions? Please. I would argue, from a Jewish point of view, that God has already done so. Intervention has already taken place. In what way? Well, as we said earlier, are you alive? Can you see and hear and act? Who made that possible? Well, I would argue God, your parents who chose to have you, your teachers who guided you, your spouse or family who love and support you. I would say there's been a lot of God's work already that intervened to put you wherever you are at any given moment. Also, in addition to all the skills and wisdom and capability that you have, do you know the difference between right and wrong? Do you know what good, quote unquote, is and what bad, quote unquote, is? And the answer again is yes, I would argue from a Jewish point of view, thanks to divine intervention in the form of our sacred scriptures, right? We have a whole list of things that we ought to be doing and ways we should behave and things we shouldn't do and things we shouldn't tolerate other people doing. And we often tolerate it and say, well, not my problem. And the problem with tolerance as a word sounds good. We're a very tolerant group. You're allowed to be here. We'll tolerate your presence. Tolerate means put up with something we don't like. Acceptance for those who are different than us, that's a Jewish value. And tolerance should never happen at all. If something is actively bad and an affront to us, we shouldn't be tolerating it. We should be speaking out against it and trying to change it. If it's just the fact that you're a Christian and I'm a Jew, or you live in Moundsville and I live in Wheeling, I don't have to tolerate your Marshall County-ness, right? I accept that you're our neighbors, right? So all the more so on questions of race or ethnicity or sexuality or disability or age. I don't tolerate the people who are different than me. I accept that there are differences amongst us and that there are opportunities for us to work together and do lots of good things. In our community up in Wheeling, I'm the usual convener of almost every interfaith program that takes place, whether that's our community-wide September 11th observance down by the riverfront, whether that's the Interfaith Thanksgiving service, whether that's Congregations for Caring, supporting Wheeling Health Right, to give medical care to the needy, whether that's partnering with our friends at the Catholic Charities and the Soup Kitchen and the House of the Carpenter to feed the hungry. I tend to be the person who brings everyone else together. Our congregation is tiny. Can we feed the hungry? No, there's no way. But can I bring our friends together? Yes. And what's the part that I play? Do I do it all myself? And they're my backup singers and I'm the star? No. The irony is, as the Jewish community, we are one of the teeniest minorities in Wheeling. You think about who's a minority in Wheeling. The African American community is a few % of our population. The Jewish community is way less than 1%. We're a tiny minority. But what we have going for us as a genuine asset that we definitely trade on as often as possible is we're no one's threat. We are no one's threat. That is to say, as a non-proselytizing faith, I'm not trying to sway you to switch teams. And we welcome people who choose to become Jewish, but we don't go out seeking anyone. And in a Christian majority community, which we certainly are, that's a misnomer because it's not a monolith. There's a very large Catholic community, and there's a number of Protestant churches, and now there's this post-denominational evangelical Christian churches popping up like C3 and Vineyard and Experience and such. And the Christian community, for better or for worse, see each other as either friendly competition, that's the better, or actively misleading people and they're going to go to hell because you're doing the wrong thing, right? And that is real. And so we're nobody's competition. So if my friend Bishop Mark Brennan, the head of the Catholic Diocese of Wheeling-Charleston, says, hey, everybody come to the cathedral, we're going to host a thing. They can't even get Catholics from other parishes to show, well, it's not at St. Vincent, I'm not coming, right? They're very parochial. And if one of the Protestant churches hosts something, their own people will come, but those other ones across the street who think they're doing the wrong thing will definitely not come, right? But if we host it, everybody comes. And that's great. So that's a service that we can provide. That's something that I can do in our teeny, teeny, tiny little congregation to make an outsized impact beyond our numbers. And if I can, then I should. And if I should, then we really must. And that's how I look at it. If I could do that thing, then I should. And if I know that I should, I really now have to. And if I don't, I'm failing. And so God's intervention is present. It's you. You're God's tool with which God is intervening in whatever situation you face in the world today. Stuck in traffic with the crazy looping around on 5th Street. So do you honk your horn at the people who are making the mistake and turning the wrong way? Or do you stop and let them merge in even though they shouldn't have been in the turn lane? You are God's judgment in that moment. You are the difference between that person who probably already feels sheepish about being in the wrong lane. You're the decider of are they going to have a bad day or a good day today. You get to decide that. You get to decide. And that is a real world situation because it happened to me just a couple hours ago where I got in the wrong lane and went, ah! So I just sat there. One car went by and honked angrily at me. And the car behind him stopped and let me in. Like literally, in the span of 10 seconds. One guy was mean and the other guy was kind. I have no idea. I shouldn't be biased. Might have been a male, might have been a female. I have no idea. One car was mean, one car was kind. and I was allowed the grace to get back into the other lane that I should have been in because I made a mistake. You can be that. I fully credit in that moment that was divine intervention in the world. Because what's the alternative to that guy slowing down and letting me in? What if I live in a world where I assume the worst, that everyone else is out to get me and I'm out to get them and we're in competition for the same zero-sum game of resources? I'm going to step on the gas and cut in and possibly cause an accident that will damage his car and mine. And if I'm forceful enough, if I'm a bully enough, and I cut him off, he's the loser and I'm the winner, right? And now he's following me and angry at me. And what if he steps on the gas and rams me from behind? Who wins in that? No one wins in that. So I get the guy who honked at me. I agree. You are correct. I'm doing the wrong thing. I was already aware of that. I appreciate the honking. I am aware that I'm in the wrong place and doing the wrong thing. But thank you for the reminder. However, the guy who let me in was much more helpful. And I would argue that is divine intervention. And every time that I find myself in a position like that, seemingly meaningless, devoid of significance in the grand scheme of the universe, it might be the most meaningful moment of the day for that other person. It might be the deciding moment of their day. What if that was the last straw of a horrible, horrible day that they're having, and then they go off and do something terrible as a result because you were mean to them? You'll never know. But you will have caused pain and suffering to another person. Or you could be kind and gracious to a total stranger who will never thank you. I had no way. I waved, but I don't even know if they saw me. I didn't stop the car, get out, go back, and say, thank you so much for letting me in, because that would have been holding up traffic even more. So the point is, they got nothing out of that. But they gave something immeasurable to me. Immeasurable. I can't put a value on how much that meant to me. Each of us is God's divine intervention in the world. So don't take your own blessings for granted, because how you deploy them and put them to use might make a tremendous difference, not necessarily even to you, but to the world that we share with everyone else. Other questions? It's a good question. Fire away. I'll answer. Any question? Controversial as you wish. Yes. Sure. I think that's accurate. I think the little things can add up to be big things, but I would even go one step further on the subject of prayerfulness, right? There's a line in our liturgy that talks about, when things are difficult and tough, and it says, the line in our prayer book says, we look inward for the answer to our prayers, and there may we find you, and there find courage and insight, and so I think that's the real issue. Do our prayers lead us to actions? And hopefully so. When I pray as a Jew, it's not to ask God to make me win the lottery, right? My prayer is to have the courage to go out and do the things I know I probably should be doing, but might rather put off for risk of what will other people think, and will I get in trouble for this? I think the prayerfulness is for God to give me the strength to do the things I know I already should be doing. I would argue the skills and talents and wisdom and abilities we should say thank you for in our prayers, rather than asking for those skills. I think we already have them. And in differing ways, different people, different skills, right? But each of us can contribute in our own way, whatever it is that we have. And I think your contributions matter, because everyone's contributions matter. And so don't think it's just little old me. It's you. Little or big doesn't make a difference. The question is, what do I do with what I have? I had a congregant in Jacksonville who was a billionaire with a B. And it was the housing crisis of 2010, and people were losing homes. And he called me up at Temple, and he said, if anybody comes to you and says they're in danger of losing their house, you give me a call. He said, I'm on the board of Bank of America, so if their mortgage holder is Bank of America, we'll just fix it. He said, and if it's not, I and other rich folks in the community will chip in money. He said, if a problem can be fixed with money, it's not a real problem. You just don't have enough money. He said, I have enough money. I will help, right? And so in the course of a year, 2010, 2011, we saved 41 different people from losing their house. And it started with one person calling me. And it continued with that person saying, you need to call so-and-so and tell him what I gave, and he's going to match it. And so could I have paid off all those mortgages? No, keeping up with my own mortgage is my biggest challenge, right? But what could I do? I could do what I'd been given the opportunity to do. Little old me helped in a way bigger than I ever imagined I could have. In a very real, practical way, with people who were in dangerous need, 2 months behind, 4 months behind, 6 months behind in one case, right? And their houses already in foreclosure or about to be, and we solved the problem. We made it known to the congregation that the help was available. We didn't say from whom. And it ended up being 41 houses saved, which was amazing, from 27 different contributors. So it wasn't just that one billionaire. He guilted all his friends into joining us and helping out too. People who were not billionaires. They were millionaires. But people helped. And to the person whose house is saved, that's an inestimable difference. To have a house versus not. And of course, they then continued making their payments. We would catch them up to wherever the bank would renegotiate with them and let them keep going. So we didn't pay off their houses, but we just caught them back up with however many months behind they were, so that they could renegotiate, come up with a lower mortgage payment, more years, whatever it was. 41 houses saved, 27 different people donated. In some cases, a couple $1,000 they donated. In some cases, tens of thousands of dollars they donated. And all together, we got it done. Could I have pulled that off on my own? No. Did I have the idea? No. Did I take credit for the idea? Yes. Oh my goodness. Absolutely. But little old me did my part. I could make the phone calls. I could connect the people who were coming to me saying they're in terrible trouble with the people who were willing to help. I did my part. I wasn't able to pay off anybody's mortgage but my own, but I helped in a bigger effort. And real difference, real change took place as a result. And it was also a bit of an eye-opener to some of our wealthiest congregants to discover how many people in our congregation were in fact struggling and on the month-to-month, paycheck-to-paycheck, living on the edge. Because you wouldn't have thought that. You would have looked at our congregation and thought, it's all rich people. We had big congregation, 3,000 members, luxury cars in the parking lot every Friday and Saturday, lavish bar and bat mitzvah parties that people would throw for their kid. And you would have thought everybody at Temple was a rich person. Everybody at Temple was not a rich person. There were rich people, and there were a lot of people who were putting on a show. And that housing crisis revealed just how narrow the margin was. And people were willing to be gracious. And it was really transformative for the community as a whole. Made a big difference in a lot of people's lives, not just those who were helped, but also those who did the helping. Other questions? Other thoughts? Never sell yourself short. You can make a difference in your way. Yes. Mm-hmm. Sure. And I think that is, from a Jewish point of view, definitely it's our actions that define us, right? There's a discussion in Jewish law, in halakha, that talks about exemptions for people who aren't able to. The person who has a disability or is in a status of lower abilities to make a difference or an impact on others. And there are exemptions offered. And the mainstream view of halakha is exemptions from responsibility are not actually a good thing. Because if you're judged on your actions, exemption is tantamount to exclusion. It's like saying, don't come, we don't want you here. And in fact, we do want you here. And we want you to participate in whatever way you're able to participate. So even if you think that's a diminished capacity, give what you can give. There's a suggestion that even the person who is so poor that they are a recipient of charity funds from the community is also obligated to give to charity. And the question is, why? The person's on welfare. They're so poor that they're living off of the donations of others. Why would they have to contribute? And the answer is twofold. One, so that everybody is contributing, and we can all say we're all in this together, and so that the person who's poor can have the dignity of saying, I'm a giver too. I give in my own way. At the temple in Jerusalem, not the tabernacle, but the actual physical structure built by King Solomon, there was a plaza. And then when that building was destroyed by the Babylonians in 586, before the Common Era, 70 years later, after the exile in Babylon, the Jews came back. They built the second temple, right, that was there into Roman times, as a bigger plaza. They expanded the plaza. That was a big Roman construction project. Anyone been to Jerusalem? You familiar with the Western Wall, right? That's not the wall of the temple. That's the retaining wall that holds the fill dirt from when the Romans expanded the plaza, right? So they made a bigger plaza so more people could get to the temple at one time. This bigger plaza could hold more guests, more pilgrims coming to visit and pray. And on the plaza, not inside the building, the physical building that was the temple, but out on the plaza, they had little kiosks, little booths that had a person inside the booth and two windows, a front window and a back window, and somebody inside, like a little toll booth. And the booths were for either donating money to help the needy or asking for money because you were needy. And the idea was you could see somebody walk up to the booth and you had no idea whether they were a giver or a receiver, so that everyone had dignity. And I think the question of equality today is about ensuring the dignity of every person, that no one should be demeaned. And I would say, in accordance with your point, that includes demeaning themselves, saying, I'm not able, maybe I'm not able to do this, but I am able to do something else, right? And if our actions define us, which is a very Jewish idea, then all of us can do something. All of us can participate in some way, maybe not the same way. In our congregation, we talk about time, talent, and treasure, right? We hope you'll give all three, right? But you got to give something. And if you can't give much treasure because you don't have much, you can give time. You can be the person who helps out, right? I just give my time. Or maybe you have great ideas and you could give the talent, right? So it's not just treasure. That's not the only measurement. In fact, all three are needed. So everyone being able to contribute in their own unique way is definitely important. I agree. For the dignity of the person and because from a Jewish point of view at least, we are judged not on our faith, not on our intentions, not even on our words as much as on our actions. I think, yes, I think there are differing circumstances, and some people, for one reason or another, don't have, in fact, none of us have the same exact abilities, but we can all give in our way, make a contribution that's meaningful. And if somebody, to use the example from earlier, if somebody's fabulously wealthy and gives $1,000 to the congregation, and somebody else is living paycheck to paycheck and gives $50, who gave the more meaningful gift? Well, you know, we need the 1,000 to make the budget work, but that 50 might have been a stretch for the poor person, and the 1,000 might be cheaping it out for the rich person, right? So giving in your own way, in a way that's meaningful to you, I think is critical. And that goes not just for donations, that goes for our actions each and every day. A policeman has a better chance of stopping a crime than me, but I can see something bad happening and call the police and report it, right? Instead of turning a blind eye and saying, ooh, so glad that's not me getting robbed, right? And walk away as if it's not my problem. So we can all participate in our own way. Great question. Any other questions? Fire away. I'll answer anything you want to ask. Okay. Neither do I. I think that's a reasonable assessment. I think that God endures, from a Jewish point of view, certainly God is eternal, right? And the opportunity to connect in a covenantal relationship is our choice to make. I think it's not surprising that we would go looking for God. It's surprising that God is actively interested in us. And so not to squander that opportunity is certainly something I try to seize on every day. So to your point, I think absolutely, God's there, and the directions are there, and the blessings are present. Whether we take notice of them or not is up to us. Other thoughts, other questions? Any others? Well, thank you very much for having me, and I will just say as an extension to your kind invitation to me, fortunately, from a Jewish point of view, there's nothing secret. So I don't have to keep you from discovering stuff about us. Anyone is welcome. Anytime there's something going on at the temple, you're always welcome. And if you ever have a question, you're always welcome to give me a call or send us an email. And there's no secret knowledge or secret rituals. Everything is open and transparent. So you're more than welcome anytime. And I will just say as a plug, a great time would be the first Sunday of May. So think about what you're doing on Sunday, May the 4th, and come to our chocolate extravaganza, because it's our big fundraiser and we could use your help. It's fun. It's fun. That's always the first Sunday of May. It has been for the last 35 years.
Church is canceled on May the 4th?
No, it's in the afternoon. It's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Come after church. Come get all the chocolate you could possibly.
You sold me a chocolate.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me.